definitely communicate, especially if it's more than one person, but when in doubt, get help. Don't be a hero. Okay? Especially if it's a larger patient, use lifts or assistance, bariatric assistance if you can get it. Unfortunately, they're never where you want them to be when you need them. But if it's available, use it. And a lot of hospitals have a no-lift policy where you're not expected to be lifting someone. You're expected to use whatever devices that they have. Not this week, but in 2 weeks, in that lab, we'll be doing Hoyer lifts. Has anybody ever used a Hoyer lift? What do you think?
I mean, first time I'd ever done it, I thought it was really fun.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, you're kind of sitting on the swing or whatever.
Yeah, and you're kind of moving them.
Yeah, he's a rather large double knee amputee guy, so I'm in a lot of stroke patients and things like that. We have to do we taught family members how to do it once. And so,
That's good. They're a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, fortunately, I guess, the one that we have is the hand crank kind. As opposed to when we press the button and it electronically lifts and moves. But if you can do the hand crank kind, you can definitely do the push the button kind, and you can't say that for the other. So we'll get practice with that, and then we'll have it in SLL too for your practice as well. Okay. All right. Last but not least in this is it's really important that you secure everything that you're going to be moving the patient from and to. So always, always, always make sure you lock the wheelchair. If you don't lock the wheelchair on the practical, you'll be doing it again. Okay? So it's not a good thing. Number one cause of wheelchair accidents, not locking the wheelchair. Okay? Now I know that, especially if you work in a rehab unit or in a hospital, you can put the brakes on and it's still moving. So in that situation, we'll expect you to do something to block the wheelchair so that it doesn't move, like pushing it against a wall, or putting shoes in, or with purses, handbags, book bags, anything to block the wheelchair from moving. So hopefully I'll do my best to find you wheelchairs that have working brakes, but that doesn't always happen in real life. So always make sure you lock the wheelchair. If you're moving them to a bed, make sure you lock the bed. Okay? One time, this is my horror story. I was moving this lady. She just had a total hip. She was a nervous Nell, and went around and looked at all the locks in the bed. They were all in lock position, and I went to get her up, and the bed moved. I think I got 5 more gray hairs at that point. And but we did a little dance. I got her. She was secure, and I got her into the chair. I was amazingly sweat after that. Just like one sweat puddle. Oh my God! But she was okay. I was okay. So now I always say, check the bed. Make sure that it's locked. Even though the brakes are down, it may not be working. So make sure that it is locked. Okay, so enough about locking. Another thing that's really helpful, especially when we're in lab, is if you're going to be moving somebody, that your shoes are on. Okay, so that you're secure. If you're moving the patient, you're secure. You're wearing shoes, not just socks. Because if you're slipping, you're not very secure in moving someone. Okay, and I was finding that today. So. Yeah, I want you to take the shoes off if you're the patient, but I want you to put the shoes back on if you're going to be moving somebody. Picky. Okay, so I kind of talked about that. Communicating, talked about that. Flat hands. If you're going to be touching the patient, you want your hands in that lumbrical grip. So your hands are flat. Watch out for rings that they don't have any sharp edges, because elderly people tend to have skin that is very, very thin and very easily tearable. And if you have a fancy ring with a lot of edges on it, tear the skin a lot. So we want to be careful of that. Yeah, those rings are gorgeous, but don't wear them when you're treating that patient. Let's see. So your hands are going to be in an open position. Okay. Now, when it comes to, we're going to be doing a lot with lifting a sheet or moving with a sheet. And there you can grab onto the sheet and you'd be in a supinated grip. Okay, so that your hands, your wrists are in supination, forearms are in supination, and you're grabbing the sheet. Okay, so flat hands on the patient, supinated grip on the sheet. Okay, so did I say anything? Oh, again, body mechanics. Okay, and then also you want to make sure that you're not putting your hands in people's wounds. Even if they have a bandage on it, that's probably not a good place to be moving the patient. And then if they have a really weak extremity, let's say they may have no movement in, let's say, their right upper extremity, you need to make sure that it doesn't get in the way. So you may have to move it yourself rather than having the patient move it, because you don't want them rolling onto it or whatever. Let's see. And then I'll talk more about avoiding friction in a little bit. Okay. In the past, you did range of motion, and you were moving the distal part of the extremity. Now, we're going to actually be moving the proximal part of the extremity. The scapula and the pelvis are going to be what they call key points of control. Those are what you're going to be moving, and they'll help move everything else. So pelvis and scapula, really the pelvis is where the action is. So you're going to be doing a lot of moving the scapula or moving the pelvis. Okay, last but not least, finally done with this, is let's say you've moved the patient onto another surface. You want to make sure that before you leave, you lift up the bed rails, if they have bed rails, and you want to make sure that if there's a call button, a phone, glass of water, whatever, that was near the patient before, you want to make sure that you move it near the patient now that you've moved him to another place. Okay, especially the call button is very important. Okay, so all of those things. All right.